Laura Palmer is Dead, a Twin Peaks podcast, part 9. Our first one-parter episode, which is what I've always wanted to do. So I'm very happy for this.
What our goals were.
Right. It took us a while to catch up. But there's
hard.
so much to talk about. Like, you almost need 2 podcasts for every one episode. It's so much stuff. I'm Kelly Dowd with Patrick Dowd and Melissa. Do we want to triangulate last names? Is that okay?
I mean, you already said your last
I know.
name. So
I just didn't want to assume.
My last name. I'm not just going to be the Madonna of the group.
I just want to make sure you were okay with it. I didn't want to assume.
Just Melissa. You can call me Melissa Crea.
Melissa Crea.
It's already on our all of our iTunes stuff.
It is. We realized that we don't ever introduce ourselves or talk about who we are. We're in it for the peaks.
This week.
Melissa and Kelly had dinner together because we're friends. And then it turned into
friends in real life.
5
IRL.
hours of
Drinking.
a little bit of
cocktails
sushi
are
and
pink. When the cocktails are pink,
they
we
were
know
called
that
pink
that's
Twinkies, and Kelly just kept ordering them,
That's
and I was like, I
my
can keep up.
kryptonite. Which is like
But
so
Kelly
odd
cannot.
for me, but yeah, it was not a good decision, but it was a great decision.
Here's a fun fact. She said Garmonbozia like 3 times while we were just out at a bar.
Because I like to see kind of what the Twin Peaks temperature in the room is. And if you throw out Garmonbozia, it's a good way to just kind of cast a quick net.
Were you asking people if they knew what Garmonbozia was?
No,
Just
she
talking
was
about
just
with
talking
Melissa.
about it.
Just like,
Like it was just me. You know when Kelly gets really drunk and she just stands and like gets really close to you and then just talks about
I
stuff
get
that she
lovey.
really is passionate about, which is basically
Garmonbozia, Twin Peaks.
Twin Peaks.
How much
David
I love you
Lynch.
guys, David
And
Lynch.
so she
Yeah,
did
all
that
the
several
usual
times through the
suspects.
night, where it was like she would pull back, then come just back at you with the love of corn.
With the love of corn. You know, corn is a highly underrated food, I think. I think like things like avocado get a lot more attention than corn when really like they're both pretty interchangeable in my book.
Corn, I mean, get all the chips.
It's really good. The Garmonbozia dip you made for our Twin Peaks premiere party was, I mean, people have been talking about that. It's been, listeners, this has been discussed in Chicagoland at large.
If I had my way and had more time and access to my work printer, it would have had a small child holding the pot. But because
we
I
wanted
did
the
it,
magician.
And then
Aka Cream Corn Boy.
yeah.
I know.
So
it was
in
really
turn,
good.
It's just on our Pinterest board.
Yeah, you can't imagine your talent for themed parties is
Here's a
out
fun
of the
fact.
park.
I'm fucking good at theme
Oh my
parties. Give me a
god.
theme. I can run with it.
Yes.
I can make it happen.
Yeah,
I can have costumes, entertainment,
Right.
and decorations.
See, that's where you're more the full experience. I can cosplay. I'm a good throw a costume together
I'm
person.
a sorority girl,
but
so
you
we
can do a
provide
whole
like
situation.
an experience.
Yes.
So I feel like that really has the heart of me.
It's
That's why
astonishing.
every time I participate in a work costume contest, like thing,
You
because yes,
You won your
I get
last
a little-
one. The one that was the Home Alone theme.
Oh, sort of. There were 2 groups in the contest. So.
But that was good. I was so proud of you. I'm really proud of listeners. One of my first, wins in life was that I was costume designer for a kindergarten production of The Sound of Music, costumed entirely out of towels at a retreat of some kind at the weird Montessori school that I was a part of.
that is very. We haven't talked about Twin Peaks at all right now.
No, we haven't.
But
We
this
just-
is very interesting to me
was
because, the towel a theme?
No,
Or
it was just like
something that you
for some
wanted
reason
to
it was
do?
like we're taking all of the students to a lake house of some kind, and I decided that the activities such as kayaking, hiking, making s'mores was boring, and what would be more fun would be to mount a full-scale production of The Sound of Music. And I thought, what resources do we have? We have towels. We'll use that to costume the lot. And that was how we did it. And so from there, I think I won some sort of kindergarten award akin to costume designer expert of some kind. You know, I've really let it go to my head all those years. I have. I really, as you know, Melissa, your skill of draping has been one of the things that drew us together.
It's true.
I don't trust someone who can't drape.
Again, I was in a sorority in college, so I know how to make a toga with my eyes closed.
Who knew that being in a sorority and being a musical theater major would be so similar?
It's really similar.
It's weird. It's very similar.
When we went to your first, so me and Tom used to date after this before this
listeners,
podcast.
Tom is no longer a part of the podcast. He went to the Black Lodge. He is sort of like a Wyndham Earl figure. He was the Albert figure, but then crossed over from Albert to Wyndham Earl, which is a line that we all tread in our lives.
It's true.
But he
and so did the Wyndham Earl.
And so he teetered over, flew the coop. So now we're continuing our journey
and broke up with his girlfriend. So in turn,
Good Tom is in the.
We're getting good Tom's in the Black Lodge. Yeah,
and he's just stuck there for the next 25 years.
The new
Doppel Tom is
Doppel Tom that has like long hair and wears like snake
Weird.
skins.
No beard.
Yeah,
and no beard.
You can't trust someone who shaves their beard.
No.
So,
anywho,
we're continuing on.
But anyway,
podcast goes on.
When one of the first togetherness of Melissa and Tom and Pat and Kelly were a toga party.
Yes.
And I told Tom, I was like, I got this. And he's like, are you sure? Because I wrapped a halter top toga myself. And
You
I
looked
was
amazing.
Like,
I still have that picture.
I was like, this is a girl toga. This is not a boy toga. Like, let's just do this. And I was like, again, in a sorority, had a lot of toga parties.
Yeah.
Like, I could drape like no other.
Draping is key. Yeah.
All you need is a sheet.
It's pretty similar.
Not a fitted one.
No.
An unfitted one.
Obvious.
Or if you end up with a fitted one, you cut up all of the stretchy parts, and then you just work with that. Like
Who
I've done
knew?
many a time.
You would think that sorority girl and drama club girl would be natural enemies, but actually natural allies.
No,
It's an amazing
all
thing.
a production.
It's all production.
In just different terms.
It's true. So speaking of productions, we start out part 9 with Evil Coop walking to the farm. And I actually think it's a really good shot because we see definitively that Coop wasn't harmed by the Dugpas or zombie coal miners, whatever we're calling them.
Yeah.
He
homeless zombies.
managed to get out pretty much unscathed. I mean, he's dirty, but he's fine.
He's bloody and stuff, but he's very limber and like
Fine. And like he's going to the farm, which it's interesting to me too that Ray so clearly gave him directions to where he was going before killing him. I feel like that was a dumb move by Ray.
But then he was also like, I'm going to the farm in case he shows up. I'm at the farm.
Right.
But then he wasn't at the farm. That's why I was like,
so we don't
when
know
we
where
were
Ray
watching
is,
this,
do we?
I was like,
no, we don't know.
are we
where Ray
sure
is.
this
Right.
is the farm?
It's
might
gotta
not be we don't
it
know
might
it's
not
the
be.
farm.
I guess
We don't
I'm
know it's
assuming
the
it's the farm.
Me too.
Because that's where they said they'd go, and I thought that Ray called Chantal, and that's who he was talking to. I don't know
He
why.
called Philip Jeffries.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
he
right. He
called
called Philip
Philip.
Jeffries.
At least one.
Okay.
At least one of the
No,
times
you're right,
he
you're
called
right.
Philip
So-
Jeffries, but
Maybe he wasn't going to the farm, or maybe
this isn't the
Evil
farm.
Coop. Yeah, it is
We
in the
don't
farm.
yeah,
It is interesting that Hutch and Chantal, Hutch played by Tim Roth, very, very cool cameo for Tim Roth, which not surprised that Tim Roth is a David Lynch favorite. Like, that's a perfect relationship. But the two of them are so loyal to Evil Coop, it's kind of almost cute. Like, they're just like, give the boss a wet one. Like, give him a new cell phone, Chantal. Like, they're just so in love with him.
A double assassination. Sounds great, boss.
Yeah, he's like, whatever you want. Sure.
Ooh,
Yeah.
Another minute, thank you.
That's why I thought it must be the farm, because
Give
I was
me
like, these
more.
must be like the farm hands, you know, Chantal
No,
Hutch.
it made sense, but it never was clarified.
No, it wasn't. You're right. And then
then
Ray's not there.
because Ray's not there, it's like, is it really the farm or just
Right.
a farm?
Well, remember that once in the first episode or two where you went to that creepy like shack?
Right. Is
And,
that
like,
the farm?
That might be the farm. I'm thinking.
Because it's like a farm
too.
of assassins, maybe?
Yeah.
Like a farm of
Farm
hired.
of hillbilly assassins.
Yeah.
That
Ooh.
have a weird,
Black Lodge.
Right.
Yeah.
Association.
Yeah.
yeah. Because I got really angry, so every episode going forward, we will be live tweeting.
Yes.
You can follow us on Twitter at LI yes, _podcast. So Laura Palmer's Dead podcast. We live tweet, and one of the big things was I thought Chantel was kind of slutty, but then I was like, who's the actress? It's not Laura Linney.
No.
It's Kevin Bacon's wife, right?
Chantal. I
Yeah.
forget.
Oh,
She's Laura
from
Linney.
Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
Yeah,
I don't
think
know her
she's
name.
Laura She's Kevin Bacon's wife. So
I believe it.
anyway,
Can't
like
think of
she
it right
just
now.
makes out with him for no
Yeah.
reason. But
Right.
then I was like, if I was this actress, I would be like, Kyle MacLachlan, I
Yeah.
would kiss you.
For
You
sure.
want to?
Jennifer
like,
Jason Lee is her.
There you go.
Uh,
Yeah.
And
well, are you
Yeah.
sure?
yeah, that's Jennifer Jason Lee is playing Chantel. She was in the first episode as well,
Yeah.
where after he killed that other like
Daria.
Daria, yeah.
After he
the
killed
alien
Daria,
guys.
he went and had times with Chantal and he
Yep.
said how wet she was.
Yeah.
I remember because I was like, wow, that is pretty aggressive. I mean,
And
that was really far.
That's Jennifer Jason Lee.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think that there's
Fast Times.
I think that Evil Coop deals in the pleasures as Bob
No.
or as Mike, one-armed Mike discusses, and so I think there's a genuine connection between him and Chantal.
Yeah.
I think he truly likes her. He digs her.
Eh.
It's certainly possible. I don't think he would think twice before throwing her in front of a speeding train, but I think
Right.
he's invested in keeping her alive. Interesting then that we have kind of split between these two farm scenes that we were just discussing.
plane ride.
Or the plane ride between Tammy, Albert, Cole, and Diane, which just even visually, I feel like it's such image, like the farm is so gritty and dirty and dusty, and then it cuts to this really pristine, clean kind of government almost clean looking plane with all these bright
Yeah.
colors, because Diane's in all these bright colors with her bright blonde hair.
Green
And Tammy
pants.
has her bright red hair. It's just like a very different feel and look to it. But this is where Gordon Cole gets the information about Buckhorn Sheriff's Department and wanting to detour the whole plane to
Lieutenant Knox. And
to find
Yes.
out more about Major Briggs. And the two things of note I think that happen in this scene are that he references to Diane, this might be of interest to her, to you, and she says, "Oh, the Blue Rose case."
Yeah.
So we know that the Laura Palmer case was the Blue Rose case, meaning I think unexplained phenomenon case, it's the case that we never solved. It's the one that got away. So Diane has history with the case through Cooper that Gordon Cole's referencing here.
But were there more than one Blue Rose cases?
I think
because
so.
of Fire Walk with Me, where
Right, where
Which
Lil-
one is this? It's a blue rose.
right, And she
I-
says,
yeah,
"Oh,
it's
one
again.
of the Blue Rose
I
cases."
feel like it
So,
could be multiple cases.
I always just
but
thought that
yeah.
Blue Rose cases are like Exiles cases. They're cases that have some tie to some supernatural phenomenon or are unexplained or fit into some category
Right,
like that.
yeah.
I don't think that it's just the Laura Palmer case is the only Blue
Right.
Rose case. There can be
I agree.
more.
And they kind of alluded to that with Fire Walk with Me because it was
Right.
prior to, the people were going there before the Laura Palmer case
Exactly.
and the doppelganger
Right.
Twin Peaks.
So I
But-
think it's there, and in this episode, we really get into some deep portal theory. Like, we've been talking kind of abstractly in the podcast about this theory of portals and numbers, and the idea that there are portals to these other dimensions that are kind of unlocked by different numbers. But in this episode, they really spell it out very clearly.
Yeah.
And it's
Now
the first time they're kind of like,
if you
yep.
haven't been taking notes, like
Yeah.
your podcast.
If you don't have a
host,
podcast, let's just feed it to you.
A lot of
like,
notes.
here's a fun fact. Like, we're going to say this number, we're going to say it again.
Yeah.
It's a thing.
They really start to, in this episode, spell everything out. And what's the beautiful, beautiful payout for Twin Peaks fans is that the key to everything is Bobby Briggs, which is like just incredible. I
He
remember
is the ugly cry that Claire Danes
Yeah.
is to Homeland.
he's amazing, and I mean, like it's funny, and I'm like jumping around a little bit here, but I can remember when I watched Twin Peaks that I wasn't necessarily the biggest Bobby fan. Like Dana Ashbrook,
No one was.
right?
I mean,
He's-
I don't know about you listeners, but no one at this table was like, "Yay,
Right.
Bobby!"
right.
They were like,
But
"Fuck,
then,
Bobby."
there are times
is
where
on the
he's
screen.
so over the top, kind of faux James Dean that it's kind of funny. Where you're like, wait, is Dana Ashbrook actually like just super genius comedian, and like we're missing it, and he's really actually the coolest person ever?
No,
And-
we saw him. His
You know,
interviews. No,
Probably
he's
not. But I do remember that the scene where Major Briggs is describing to Bobby about this dream he had about him where
on the veranda.
Yeah, and
he's
Briggs
like-
Piazza. Or
and they don't ever actually
This is
share
my other notebook, guys.
well, it's interesting, and I wish I had notes on this, but like they don't verbatim share the dream in this episode, but there's references very heavy-handedly to like
Yeah.
this dream that Major Briggs has about Bobby, where he's seeing Bobby later in life, and Bobby's happy and fulfilled, and he's living in a beautiful home, and they embrace with nothing withheld. I remember that line because I think it's like for a father and son, there's a lot of just shit. And this idea of like embracing with nothing withheld is very hard, and it's uncommon.
Parent and child.
Yeah.
It's the same thing.
Exactly. And so I thought it was I remember in this series when it happened, I thought it was a beautiful passage. And to have it pay out in such a major way is really nice. And I actually am very pleased with this choice of having Bobby be such an integral part of where this investigation and this story is going. And I actually do think Dana Ashbrook has improved as an actor in the
That's
last
true.
25 years.
But we also
That's
forget
a
that
good
Bobby killed a guy.
Yeah, Bobby
I
killed a
got away.
guy.
He got away with
I
murder.
don't know if you remember this from Fire Walk with Me,
Yep.
because you should.
Yeah.
Because he fucking killed a guy. And then
I know,
they
he
just
goes-
kind of giggled about
It's
it.
like he-
and was like,
Laura,
oh, yeah.
Laura did.
Laura
Yeah.
convinces him that he killed Mike.
Bobby
You killed Mike, and he's
Mike.
like, "Is this Mike?"
And
yeah,
now he's a cop?
now he's a cop,
This
and
is something about the vetting process at the Twin
I
Peaks
know it was all
department.
preordained.
But then we have Chad that's dealing drugs on the side, and then just a
Right.
dick in general.
But you know what? It's not uncommon for like the neighborhood street toughs to become the cops. Like that
Right.
really is kind of the way
See,
things
Sure,
go, which is crazy. But like we've seen it with your friends
Vicious
from Berwyn,
hooligans. Vicious
where like it's like
hooligans
the like
becoming-
kids who are like not street toughs like gangs, but like the kids who are like kind of like assholes who like screw up and are
There's a
screw
quote
offs.
from somewhere where they're like, "Do you know why I pulled you over? You got C's in high school." And I feel like that's from 30 Rock, but it's
Right.
like, oh yeah, because you're doing all right.
Like it's
But
like in
you're not
Garden
doing
State.
great.
Yeah.
Where it's like the cop is the
The snow
kid who
cop.
like
But then
screwed
like
up.
he's like, "Fuck you! I got this badge.
Right.
I can pull you over
literally
when
do whatever I want to you. Yeah, and that's Chad for sure. I mean, Chad is that
no
cop
offense
who
to
was like.
local law enforcement
Yeah.
here in Chicago.
We were actually Pat and I have had two different cop experiences that are both on the far ends of the spectrum. We had one experience where a cop just kind of came into our apartment in the middle of the night and harassed Pat. And then we had another
What was
experience.
that
That was in our
experience?
old place. I don't want to triangulate where, but not here.
Yeah.
They were banging on the door at like maybe
Because we
1
made the
in
mistake
morning or
of
something.
living next to drug dealers.
Yeah.
Not our
I'm
fault,
like,
but
did you know? No.
no, obviously not. In fact, I brought them brownies from a party, like regular brownies from a Halloween party, to be like,
Not
"We're your
fun
neighbors.
brownies.
Why don't you just say hello? Here's some brownies." And the guy like slammed the door in my face, and I was like, "Oh God, weird." So these cops were pursuing this guy and just like messed with me and Pat, but it was like in the middle of the night. It was very scary. They were not. It was not necessary for them to be that level of aggressive and awful, and that's how CYPD can be. But then, on the other hand, we were just talking about cops when we had a Halloween party here that got called to a noise complaint, and we're like the sweetest, coolest cops in the world that were like, "Hey, Princess Leia," because I was dressed as Princess Leia, duh, not surprising to anyone who's listening. And they were like, "We're sorry, this is lame that we have to do this."
In all fairness, not surprised at anyone at this table,
Right.
but maybe surprised to other people.
That's true.
Like, here's a fun fact. Kelly loves Princess Leia.
I love Princess
And
Leia.
Star Wars in general.
Yes. And I've dressed up as Princess Leia in many forms multiple times. And this was one of those times. And this police officer was very nice. So you get assholes drawn to positions of power, but you also get great, sweet, wonderful people drawn to positions of power too. So what goes around comes around. But yeah, you can certainly see why Chad's a dick. So we get.
Such a dick.
I do like too how in this episode we're getting payoffs with the
Yes.
connection that Evil Coop has to all these different factions. So you have the farm, and you do see how connected he is because he learns about the warden, or he is able to put a hit out on the warden and say kill the warden, and then he says doubleheader in Vegas. So I'm thinking that is Duncan and
Yeah.
someone else, but. Who's the other person?
Duncan and Dougie, probably.
Oh, is that what he... No, it's gotta be
Oh,
Yeah.
Duncan and Dougie.
That's a good.
Yeah, good guess. Because
didn't
I
even
was
think
thinking,
about it.
Yeah.
who besides Duncan? So Duncan, what's the actor's name?
Of Duncan?
Yeah, I don't remember, but he's been in David Lynch
He's been
stuff
in a lot
before.
of David Lynch movies.
He's one of those B actors.
He's like in everything.
where like you see him and you're like, that guy, but then you have no idea who he is.
He was in Mad Men. I remember that. He was
Right.
like some baseball player who did a commercial with Don Draper. And
Yeah.
like,
He's in everything. I mean, he's like a really...
He's one of those
Side-
guys.
side
He's
man,
like
side-
that guy. Yeah, I've seen him in this.
But it does seem like that... So are we insinuating in this episode that Duncan reports to Evil Coop? Is
Oh,
Evil
yeah.
Coop...
Oh yeah.
So Evil Coop
Obviously,
is different.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So I think we're assuming like the big man in Las
Vegas is Evil
Coop.
Coop. Okay, that's what I'm thinking.
So I
Yeah.
think he has
Yeah.
ties in Vegas and in
'Cause he
the
says,
Buenos
"Get it done."
Aires
Right.
area as well, because he had the black box and like all of that shit going down.
Yep,
Right.
yep.
So we know that, yeah, so Coop is the Vegas billionaire, which means that he has the footage of Dougie gambling in the, so yeah, you're probably right, Pat. It's gotta be Duncan and Dougie. But so then when Coop calls Duncan, he's talking about Dougie when he says, "Did you get it done yet?"
Did you get it done yet?
And
Yeah.
Duncan's like, "No." So that's when he says to
Better be done before I call again.
right when he says to Hutch, double homicide. He's like, take care of Dougie
Right.
that didn't get taken care of, and Duncan that didn't take care of Dougie.
I missed a little bit of that.
I think
I'm
that's
not gonna lie.
probably what it is.
Maybe. We don't know.
We don't know
We
for sure,
don't
but I think
know.
that's a good bet. That
That
that's
is a
what's
very
happening.
like legit.
So then, Evil Coop also texts around the dinner table. The conversation is lively.
And he texts
right
it
there,
to
and then, yeah, it
Diane.
goes to Diane.
And then we find out that it
Around
goes
the
to
dinner
Diane.
table, the conversation is, and it's interesting because it shows on her phone as blocked number, which means she blocked Cooper's number. I never
But
knew
then
that when
later
you
they
block someone's number, it still shows up. It just says blocked number, which to me seems like, What's
No.
the point of blocking anyone then?
Here's a fun fact: like, if you really try to block someone's number, like, you don't get any messages from.
Right,
that
that's what I
person.
thought it was.
So maybe someone else was trying to call her, but
Right.
then like,
They blocked the number.
but then
Could
if,
be.
if Evil Coop sent a text message all around, and then Diane got it because we know Diane's being weirdly shady. Part of me wants to be Diane, part of me like hates her, but part of me loves her so much.
Yeah, it's
And
a
wants
great
to be
episode
her.
for her.
It really is, because you want to embrace her fuck you attitude. But
Which is clearly a front. I mean, clearly she's
Right.
hiding this intense vulnerability that I feel like comes from these experiences. Like, you get a picture when you watch Twin Peaks from Coop of who Diane is.
right.
And we see now this picture of Diane, and we're trying to reconcile the two. And so we know that a traumatic event led to the Diane that we see, because the old Diane wasn't this Diane. And I think we
Right.
know that. Like, even the fact that this is the only Diane we've seen, we know that she wasn't always this callous and cynical.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a traumatic experience with Coop that turned her into this. And so it's just interesting. I think it's some really cool choices that they do with her.
No, I agree. Because I think it's because you want to be her, but then you're sympathetic to her. As a woman viewer, I feel like
Right.
she's a good character. Because, like, Tammy, you want to stab in the neck.
No, I know, and I
Like, you
really-
just want to stab in the neck. I don't know
I'm
why.
trying to like I want to like Tammy. I came in wanting to like
can't-
Tammy.
But
But it's
you're
just
not.
like,
I think you're not meant to like her.
no, I don't think so.
Like,
I think that
that's
the
just
thing.
like now. Like
I think
now,
that's what they're
it's-
going for there.
At
You're not
first, I
meant
was
to
like,
her.
so who is this bitch? And then it was like,
Because David Lynch is smarter than that.
right,
he-
because like
he
Diane
knows.
is someone where it's like,
Girls
not-
love Diane.
it's like I know I'm not supposed to like her. Because like something shady's going on, and like she's dipping into
She
the
knows
dark
something.
lodge type thing.
Yeah.
But it's like her empowerment just makes me want to be her. And
Yeah,
just be
even
like,
I
have a
noted in that
good-
scene where in the Buckhorn Sheriff's Department where they all come together and they make that comment where she goes, "It's a fucking morgue."
Right.
She's
So they're
like-
on a plane, and then we find out that Major Briggs might be like the body's there. So we reroute the
Right.
FBI plane to Buckhorn. And then she's like, I don't need to see a dead body.
Right, because
I
she's
can
like,
just
"Fuck
sit
you,"
here."
because she's pretty much been like this whole time, like, "I'll come here, but my end game is just to get home."
Right, and she's like, why am I even here? Like,
Right.
I have nothing to do with this, so I'm just gonna sit here and have a cigarette.
Right.
And they're like, oh, you can't smoke here.
She's like, "It's a fucking morgue." And what I noticed that's interesting too is like, this is right before she gets the text from Coop. She does this wide leg sit that's like
I saw
man
that,
spreading,
too. Yeah.
where I'm like, she's being so manly. And it's gotta be on purpose, because everything Tammy's been doing has been so slithery and feminine and curvy.
Snake-like.
And like having Diane be so aggressively like masculine in this scene, and like the colors and the angularity of her hair and her clothing, they're just
Right.
trying to make Diane as different from Tammy as possible. And I don't know what that serves,
But do we know
but
if
it's a choice.
Right. Do we know if it's a good choice or a bad choice? Because
don't
it's
know.
either like you can be harsh, you can be like, this
Right.
is one way to be a woman, or this is
Right.
the opposite, where it's like you have long hair and you're pretty and
Right.
you walk with your
You
hips.
slither about. Well, and I think the other example
You
of
need to
kind
eat a
of,
fucking cheeseburger
Yeah.
for 12.
I know.
You can't be voluptuous with bony hips.
Right.
That's just my thing. It's really bothersome.
Well,
to
and
me.
this is kind of the question that I've been struggling with the return in general is femininity in Twin Peaks.
It's true.
Because in the original series, there's a clear place for the feminine energy. You
Right.
know, like Laura is the victim, kind of goddess, kind of virgin
She's-
character. I mean,
Right.
and then you have all these other feminine tropes kind of surrounding her with Audrey and Donna and all these other strong female characters. In the Return of Twin Peaks, you sort of have the shrew with like Janie E and Doris.
It's like most of the
Right.
female characters now
Are
are these
one or the
these,
other.
like, naggy,
Right, either
like
Candace, Doris, Janie E, or these like sinewy, slithery, feminine,
where it's like I'm trying
like
to seduce
Phyllis,
you.
Tammy, and you don't have a lot of female character, and then or Diane, who is, I think they're drawing our attention to her emasculating of herself because she is doing that to like regain power, as you would like is totally logical after her experience that she'd want to be like, I'm gonna shun everything feminine and kind of channel this sort of manly, more masculine energy. So there hasn't been a ton of like positive female influences in the show, you know, and it does make me wonder, not that any of the characters are particularly gleaming moral
Right.
high ground
But-
characters.
In all fairness, was past Twin Peaks feminist in that way? Not really.
No,
Yeah,
I,
really
I don't
played-
think so.
They
Right
played to
there.
the tropes of what women should be.
The
where it's
Madonna
like-
War Complex,
Right.
which kind of
Where it's like, oh, you're slutty or you're sweet, or like it's the general tropes that women
Yeah.
played.
which it, you know, I've been
And I don't know enough of Lynch's work to be like, this
see.
is kind of like,
Is he doing
What
it
it is?
ironically?
because it's
Right.
it seems to me like he has a
He loves
healthy
women.
appreciation of women. Yeah, I mean, like he seems to have a lot of female friends.
Women seem to love him.
Yeah, I mean,
well,
Right?
if
Doesn't
you
it
pay
seem-
them multiple millions of dollars, I will love you too, Pat. Like anytime, like we
Fair
just
enough,
wanna
fair enough. Yeah.
throw
yeah.
$3 million at
Well-
me. $3 million. That's low.
Yeah,
That's
I don't know.
lowballing on my total.
it's a mystery.
Package.
I think that some sort of kind of like little whisper got into my ear that said, does David Lynch kind of hate women? And that sort of whisper has been continuing to whisper a little bit, where I
'Cause
sometimes
all
worry.
the wives are weird and
Right, all the
naggy.
wives are shrews. I mean, all the wives are nags.
Except for Betty Briggs.
Right, Betty
Right.
Briggs is lovely, but she's a widow.
Betty Briggs.
It's true.
You
But
know,
she was
Husband
great
died.
when she was a wife and wasn't
It's
a
true.
widow.
She was
It's
one
true.
of those quiet. I just do what my husband
Yeah, I
says.
know.
Yeah, I'm
I
just
thought so. I
quietly
thought that
supportive.
too, but-
well, and I don't know, and that's what is. It's interesting
That's
too
an
that we
interesting
haven't
concept,
seen
Yeah.
Bobby's wife, because one of the things with Major Briggs's vision of Bobby in the future, he imagines Bobby with a wife and kids and a family. And we haven't seen Bobby's wife or kids. We don't know anything about Bobby having a family. I would be interested to learn about that. I mean,
Did they say he has a family? Or
well, we don't know
We
at
don't
all,
know,
but
yeah,
from
yeah.
Major Briggs's vision of Bobby, which
Yeah.
they've said is true. Like Betty Briggs was saying, you have to understand, Bobby, you were a far way
Right.
now, or far away then from where you are now, and your father just saw this for you. He saw your future, and we know from that episode, which I mean, it's an iconic moment in Twin Peaks. There's no way David Lynch would like disregard it. When Major Briggs shares with Bobby this dream he has of Bobby, and like having this home and family and kids.
Right.
But we haven't seen any of that, so we don't know. And it's just kind of interesting because we also haven't seen anything with like Shelley's kid. Like we don't know what happened there.
You know, there's a lot of unanswered Twin Peaks.
Like
specific
lore. Yes.
questions that are happening. So
Right.
we know Mrs. Briggs, we know Garland told her of his dream and everything. And then they find the chair, which Lynch alludes to being
Yeah. This is the chair.
earlier it's just Andy and Lucy fighting over which color chair they should pick for $179.
Right.
Oh
And
my
then-
god, I didn't write that down in my notes.
The,
And then,
$179.
was that what it was?
yeah.
And then before that was Dougie in
the
his
Dougie
chair.
sitting in his chair.
And there was
Oh.
they figure out there's nothing on Dougie before 1997.
Right.
Oh.
The Detective
Oh.
Married to
Fusco's.
Joseph.
The last
It's interesting because Showtime has been, I think, extremely David Lynch supportive. They allow him to control everything, I think.
I mean, since I subscribed to Showtime now, specifically for Twin Peaks,
Yeah.
I have not found much that I want to watch besides Homeland.
Right.
I really love Homeland.
Yes.
And I
yes,
feel like I
yes.
should watch The Affair because I feel like that got really good recognition
Yeah.
in the beginning.
Meh, I don't want to watch it. But yeah, I mean,
I'm newly single, so I can watch it.
okay. Yeah, I think like these descriptions of episodes, which are always extremely short, are like literally written by David Lynch. So the description for this episode on Showtime is "This is the chair." And so there are 3 instances that could be tied to "This is the chair." Number 1, when Dougie is at the Los Angeles Police Department and he's sitting in a chair staring at an American flag, and there's something about Kyle MacLachlan's eyes and his face, and they start playing America the Beautiful, and you feel like he's going to remember
and
everything.
he sees the red shoes.
Yes, he sees a
from a
girl
woman
walk
who-
by
yeah.
wearing red shoes, and they flash on that. So you're like, Audrey. Like,
Right.
for Twin
And then
Peaks
he repeats answers,
answers
but a little more normally
in
than,
his normal coupe voice.
Yeah.
So you're thinking,
Chugs the coffee and does a funny little like chin
Right.
movement. which
so
I
when
love.
I saw that description, "This is the chair," and that scene, I thought, this is the chair where Cooper remembers everything. And then that didn't happen, of course. So then the second chair reference is Andy and Lucy are both at the sheriff's department deciding between a beige or red chair to purchase. And they're both like at their respective desk stations determining whether or not to buy a red or beige. She wants beige, he wants red, right? And
Andy
what's-
red,
no.
Lucy beige.
no,
Yeah.
Lucy beige. Okay. And what's so cute to me about this scene, this is one of those scenes that, like, if you're not a Twin Peaks fan, means literally nothing to you. Like, you'd watch it and be like, why did we just spend so much time on this? That makes no sense. But if you are a Twin Peaks fan, it has a whole nother sweetness and meaning because you're seeing, like, oh, this is what a Brennan marriage fight is like. It's them fighting about something silly, like red versus beige, and both of them
That's how
being
I
like,
picture both of you fighting.
yep, this is pretty much how it goes.
Where it's like, I really like this one.
And I really like this one, Patrick. And then he's
It's
like,
like-
I'm sorry, Pumpkin, you can get what you want. And then I buy him what he wants anyway.
Mhm.
That's
Yeah.
literally how it is.
That's right.
Yeah.
We're Andy
Yeah.
and Lucy. It's not true. Yeah.
It's pretty disgusting. because it's so cute.
But it's
So-
it's like the
but I'm going
cutest
through a
scene.
breakup, so I'm very cynical right now. So, whatever.
That scene
it's
is
fine.
really,
It's fine.
really sweet. And I think if you're not a Twin Peaks fan, you're just like, who are these weirdos? But when you know and love Andy and Lucy like we do, it's so
And-
sweet.
In all fairness, like we've said before, mostly when Kelly's really drunk on gin drinks, is you
If they're
can't
pink,
watch.
keep them away from me.
If you watch the show in the return, like you can't be a casual fan. Like you have
No.
to know
There's
stuff.
not a possible way.
Like I know a lot more because I take notes. Like I literally
You
write
study it.
down
You work
stuff.
at it. I know you do.
And then if you can't just come into it, because I've had friends be like, I can just like pop in. I was like,
No. It's
you
not
watch
like that.
the 2 seasons, rent the movie, then come back to the
It's
Showtime
true.
series because it's very like this isn't for the casual.
No,
fan.
it's not.
It's for like
A serious viewer.
someone that just keeps it on in the background when like they need to do stuff.
No.
Which is not me, but it's probably you guys, mostly Kelly.
But I mean, like, Yeah. Yeah,
I feel
you
like
can't
it's like
background
Lost,
view.
kinda. Like
Yeah.
Lost was
It's
I
true.
know.
You
the
have to like
original
study.
Lost, really.
Yeah.
But
Well, that was we watched a Kyle MacLachlan interview that was really good, where he talked about, you
That's
know,
why you didn't text me back when I sent you in an Uber
I know.
home to your husband
I was
and
just like-
text your husband that you were coming home in an Uber with all of the
Thank
details.
God my parents don't listen to this podcast.
oh,
Sorry.
But yeah,
Aw.
but
They
you
should.
guys, I never get drunk except for once a month in relation to Twin Peaks.
on
But
podcasts.
yeah, so the Kyle MacLachlan interview was interesting because he said that he was like, it's a different pace than other television shows.
Yeah.
But once you get used to it and invest in it, you're gonna be along for the ride. And you're
Once
gonna
you get into the time,
yeah.
like,
Once you get used to the
hey,
timing,
yeah, the timing and the
which that is the thing that is very different about this show from other shows is the timing is different. I mean, there are
Right.
scenes that go on too long. There are
Once you
scenes
get on the
that
right
feel cut
wavelength.
short. There, you know, it week to week there isn't necessarily like a cohesive flow.
Right.
You might not get an answer for a question 3 weeks after the question was asked, you know?
Right.
Like you have to be invested.
Where I felt like because of this episode, because episode 8 was the very lynchy, very artistic view of things, and then it's like episode 9 was so everything we kind of like miss because we were being weird and
Right.
artistic over here.
Yes.
Like this is the Dougie stuff. This is
Yep.
the Bobby stuff. This is the Major Briggs stuff that we kind of like. You couldn't really
Right.
get last
William
episode.
Hastings stuff.
Yeah,
Right,
we
which we
learned
haven't
about-
talked about him
yeah.
in ages.
Like we haven't seen him since when? Like
So they
episode
spell-
2
Episode
or
3 or
They
2.
they spell out pretty much everything about his story. Like he's
Right,
having
which-
an
All he's
affair with
doing
the
is
librarian
crying.
whose head they found with Major
Yeah, which
Briggs'
I was
body.
wrong, listeners.
Um,
I believed that he wasn't having an affair and that he was just kind of taken advantage of by.
He wasn't.
Did?
He
I
was.
didn't think he was having an affair.
He was having an affair, but he definitely didn't kill her. I think.
No, he didn't kill her.
I agree.
Yeah.
They went into the Black Lodge and then like Bob or something killed her. She had the numbers on her wrist because
And that's
that
why
was
her
what
body
killed her.
was gone.
Yeah.
That's my
Yeah,
philosophy.
Right.
'Cause she
was
had written the
that She wrote it
numbers.
down, and then he had to circle who the major was that they met, and then wrote down the date 9/29.
Yep. Because
And then
we
it
haven't
was
even gotten
Cooper.
to that.
Cooper. Everyone just keeps talking about Cooper, which is like if you kind of take a step back, it's super creepy because
Right.
it's like Cooper was just a random
Like,
person that
passing
came
through.
into the lives, but then like he became like
A legend,
fixture.
really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where
It's
it's
a
like
myth.
even like creepy stuff like when Bobby finally opens the
Little bullet thing.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
the
it's
weird
like-
thing. And it's the second tab is like
Yeah.
second tab. I work in Excel a lot, so
Yeah.
it's the second
As we
tab.
discovered this
Second
week,
tap.
drinking, Melissa works in Excel a lot. I do not.
Right. Right. So the second like piece of paper he pulls is just a bunch of numbers and then it says Cooper. Cooper, and then Hawk goes, 2 Coopers.
Right.
And I was like,
Oh,
only you, Hawk. Only you, Hawk.
And listeners, it's a
Got it.
callback to when Major Briggs brought the very same printout to the sheriff's department to say that when they were monitoring deep space, they get a lot of gobbledygook.
What was
And
the
then
message?
he gets the Cooper, the owls are not what they seem.
Was it 2 Coopers or was it 3
It was
Coopers?
Cooper.
Well, it was Cooper.
I think it was 2 Coopers.
So then it's probably the same.
because
message
Dougie is
then.
not supposed to be. I think that's what they're
I
saying.
Right.
And that's where all the 3s are coming in. Because the 3s are Dougie, Evil Coop, and Good Coop.
Right.
And the portal is all around 3, and everything's
I'm
around
reading
3.
this weird young adult novel where it just went into this thing where it's like 3 people are sleeping, but you only want to wake up 2. Like the
Oh,
third one
jeez.
is like is the bad one. So I feel like
It's
must
all
be
comes
like
back to 3 theory.
Some
Yeah.
riddles. Sounds like
Yeah,
some riddles.
it's some
going on.
kind of like
Listeners,
Labyrinth
space
also,
style.
thing.
we're both 33 years old.
Oh, I'm 34.
What?
Yeah. Today I looked at the clock at 3:33 and I was like, what the like threes have become my scary thing because of Twin Peaks. Scary / beautiful, but I mean, there's definitely they're not even hiding it. Now they're very open-handedly. They're
trying
parting
to
the
make
kimono.
sure you
Yeah, you understand number theory.
that there's shit going down. Where
Right.
It's like, oh, because so Bobby opens, so Mrs. Briggs,
Betty Briggs, she
finds.
didn't age a day. I mean, God, she looks
I
great.
mean, she ages some
hmm.
days.
A little, I mean, she looks
That's,
great to me.
Yeah,
I think she
that's
looks
I mean,
great.
she looks good.
She looks good.
For her age.
She's got like a
She's
MacBook
like an 80-year-old
Pro.
woman.
She
Before
looks
she
good
looked
for
like
her
a
age. All right.
50-year-old woman, so.
You guys are just terrible. I think she looks great.
Kelly's one of those that is always.
You're very sweet, though. You're very
Yes,
sweet.
exactly.
She
Her
looks great.
Yeah, she looks good for her age, but she
Yes,
did
she is
age
old. Well, this is one of the
as the series aged 25 years.
one of the oldest casts on TV. I have to say. I mean, it
she's
is
one of the like living ones.
Yeah, it's
Like,
true.
We're in like,
Yeah.
oh, everyone else is dead. Guys.
Yeah. So she,
The Doc Hayward
and I
died.
love the way they do this scene, and I think this is one of the big payoff scenes in Twin Peaks.
It's true.
When Bobby, Hawk, and new Sheriff Truman come to see Betty, and she's working on her MacBook Pro. I like to think making a playlist for something, just because that's what I like to think.
I know.
And then,
it's more your vibe.
right? And then they ask her, a question about Cooper, and she kind of almost cuts them off and says that Garland Briggs said that Bobby would come by with Hawk and Sheriff Truman. She says, I didn't know it would be this Sheriff Truman at the time to talk about Agent Cooper, and he mentioned this the day before he died.
Yes.
So it's a significant thing, and she was like ready for this to happen. And it's a very sweet scene the way it happened. She like offers them coffee, then brings them into the living room and shows them this chair. So that's the third chair. So we have the chair in the LA Sheriff's Department, we had the chair of Lucy and Andy, and then we have finally this chair.
I think, and then she even says, "This is the chair."
This is the chair. So she's
this is
this
obviously
is the chair.
the
Yeah.
chair that they're talking about.
And she just says that it was amazing because Bobby was nowhere near where he is now, and Garland knew where he would be. And so she basically hands them kind of like, it looks like a little bullet from the chair.
Okay.
That she pulls a lever from the chair to pull it out and gives it to them.
Yes.
And it's like when they go back to the sheriff's department, there's that scene where Chad is eating like garmonbozia.
I like to think of it as two lean cuisines.
Yeah. Two lean
And
cuisines,
so they-
but they're like corn lean cuisines.
So he has
Because Chad
to,
sucks.
he has to throw it against the ground, hear the like vibrations, and then
Yep.
throw it a
Bobby
second
does,
time.
yeah. 'Cause
Once
Bobby's
once
like,
it gets to
Bobby's
the right
like,
pitch.
I know what that is.
Yeah.
Right. And we're all like,
Mhm.
why didn't you just say that as soon
Yeah.
as you left your parents' house?
Because he was fucking with them.
Well, and he also, I think Bobby's probably going through this moment where he's like, could this possibly
I could be the hawk right now.
Right, like he's like, is this really all about me? Like now everything, like I like to imagine that Bobby was kind of the mediocre police officer who's like tries hard and works and he's decent at his job, but he doesn't have the natural gifts of like Hawk. And now it's like his dad had built into him this like database of knowledge that's gonna save the day. And I think Bobby, part of why he gets so choked up is that he's having this gratitude about how his dad has given him this role in this drama that
Yes.
makes Bobby the hero, where Bobby would never deserved to be the hero, and suddenly he is, because Major Briggs saw that in him.
And then he gets a second message. Once they open the bullets, he knows what Jack Rabbit's palace is or where it is
Right.
or something like that.
So it's
And the instructions,
253.
which I think are probably the instructions to get into the Black Lodge, right?
Right, which
Um,
so listeners, let's dissect the note because I know if you're a Twin Peaks fan, that's all you're talking about right now is the note. So the note says 253 yards east of Jack Rabbit's place. Melissa, give us the number theory on that.
Well, it's 253, which is also the time that they put.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but that's divisible by 10. So it's not divisible by 3, but it's 253, so it ends in a 3.
Right. So not quite what we're used to. Not overt
No.
number theory. And then
But something has to be going on, but 10,
10-1 and
Because
10-2 are
it's
the dates.
10-1 and 10-2 are the dates, and it's before Jack Rabbit's palace. Put some spoil in your pocket before
Right.
you leave. And it's like,
And the image they draw is the two triangles. That's the Twin Peaks.
yes.
And one has a circle over it, and one has the owl
Owl
cave symbol and a kind of like half circle above it.
Yeah.
So it does kind of look like a winking eye, I think, which is either like One-Eyed Jack's or Nadine's or something
Right.
with one eye.
Because in all fairness, I thought that Jack Rabbit's was One-Eyed Jack.
Right.
Initially. Like, I was
But
like,
it's
or
Jack
is
Rabbit's
it, or is it
palace.
astronomy where it's like the position of the
Could be.
planets, and that's
Oh.
exactly
Right, that like
what
one
To
is,
me,
yeah,
agreed.
because they
Because
have
that
done that
in the-
before, because this is the time and this is the
when
place.
Jupiter and Saturn
Oh.
meet.
Yeah.
I think it's when Jupiter and Saturn meet is when the Black Lodge opens. So I think maybe that. might-
Interesting.
Whoa.
Pat, I've never been more turned on. That was amazing.
I can leave the room if necessary. Take a bottle of wine with me, though.
That's an interesting theory. Huh. I mean, numbers and astrology have to be the big thing here.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
then
of
the second thing that they have is those like gibberish deep space signals with Cooper. It's all about Black Lodge and portals. And I think what this is all trying to do is to get Bobby to open up the portal, because Bill Hastings talks about their portal journey that he and Ruth took, where they saw the Major, and the Major was trying to get to another place. He was in hibernation.
Right.
So we know the Major,
He's
that Major
43.
Briggs was...
And it's 929. There's a lot of numbers being
Right.
thrown out.
Yes, they're like, no one's seen Dougie since 97 is one thing. And then the Major was in hibernation since he was 43.
That's 10. And then 1997 is 10. And so is this.
Yeah, so why are we
I
getting
know.
into tens all of a sudden? That's
Then
kind of
10-1
weird.
and 10-2. I don't know.
And then twos are big because remember Richard and Linda, 2 birds with 1 stone is like the first thing the giant says.
10-1 and 10-2. 2
Ooh,
birds,
interesting.
1 stone. We are stretching it.
I mean,
but
these are the things you
don't
have to
know.
think.
But you don't know.
Right. And I still think Richard and Linda are the 2 kids of Cooper.
Oh,
Richard
and I
Horn
really
and
don't
Linda
think so.
Eaton or Egan, whatever Diane's last name is.
I'd like to have more hope.
I think Richard
that.
is the Richard that the giant mentions. Got to be Richard.
Richard Horn, yeah, for sure. Speaking of horns, Johnny Horn gets killed in this episode, which was
Hey guys, that's what happened.
Who let him loose?
That was
is
my-
what I want to know.
Mrs. Horn, which
Let him out.
I
Mrs.
looked
Horn.
up. He's living with Mrs. Horn, and
But
it's
she
the same actress.
she was screaming, "Who let him loose?"
I know,
So
so we
who
don't
else?
know
Who let
who
him
lives
loose?
there. They live in a very nice house. Pat brought up an interesting piece of Twin Peaks lore, which is this is the 3rd Johnny, correct, Pat?
Yeah, that's. I read a review on it, and
My
they
head dies.
they
Yeah.
mentioned that there was a Johnny in the pilot of the original series,
And then there was Hot Johnny.
and then the Johnny in the subsequent whatever episodes after
yeah.
the pilot, and then this Johnny who ran
The
into
second
wall.
Johnny was like a Benny and June kind of Johnny, and he was
I mean,
very
the
hot.
first 2 Johnnies were both hot. I think. I'm
Right,
pretty
this
sure they
Johnny
were
was
both
more. I mean, you didn't really see him.
hot. Yeah.
He kind of ran his head into
No,
a
he literally
picture frame
just
and then
Yeah.
died.
where
which is fine, you know.
As this host might be the person that live tweets our episodes where it was like, whoa, Johnny. And then it was like, fuck, Johnny just died. But hashtag, there's Audrey.
Right.
Like, there's going to be a funeral.
Really, really hoping. Melissa and I were both like, what we need right now is an old school, full cast Twin Peaks funeral for Johnny. Like,
classic.
What I wouldn't give for literally every character
funeral.
in Twin Peaks to be involved in a funeral. Bring Audrey back. Here's your opportunity. Her brother just died. This has got to be it. I mean, this has got to be the impetus for her to come back to Twin Peaks. Because, like, I've always thought she wouldn't live in Twin Peaks. She would have gotten the fuck out.
Right.
So...
And I think that's what the hardest of the return is it's so not Twin Peaks that it's like you have to really invest yourself in more of the lynchiness than you want to, because you can enjoy Twin Peaks just as like a plot development where it's like, oh, here's a murder mystery story. Like, it gets a little weird. Guys,
but here you
go.
go.
Like, it's kind of cute.
But the tropes are still there.
It.
Like, is it the family or is it the boyfriend or is it like the weird guy in the Canadian tuxedo?
Right. And then it like this is just like there is no, as we talked about previously, or whether offline or online, there's no A plot.
No.
Like, there's no thing we're thriving for. It's just like to get fucking answers to any of this.
I guess, or really, we don't know what is a plot.
Yeah.
Like, everything could be connected,
Dougie,
but some things maybe are not connected. We don't know.
Right.
Yeah, I think that Coop is the story. I mean, the story is of the three Coops.
Or is it because we have such a connection to Cooper that we want it to be Cooper?
Right, exactly. Because if it's not, as you've mentioned, Melissa, like, Twin Peaks is kind of the comedic relief. Like, the Twin Peaks scenes tend to be the less serious scenes. They tend to have less development.
Literally, Johnny came in. We didn't really know it was Johnny until, like, we heard it, like, 4 times.
Who let Johnny loose?
Yeah.
Right. And then he ran into a fucking wall.
Yeah.
And then we just, like, go back to the giant hole in the wall, and you're like...
Right.
First off, how fast was this guy running? Like, even if you're 35 years old, running at full speed, like, first off, if you've been locked in your apartment for so long, you're probably kind of chubby. And you don't have that kind of velocity to really kill yourself by running into a mirror.
I do think, too, that they, in this series, whenever they use Johnny, it was to bring attention to some sort of societal commentary. Like, it was always like... Johnny was reacting like the way that was more normal while everyone else was trying to pretend like things were okay. And so, like, I feel like Johnny's reactions are always supposed to draw our attention to, like, what would the normal reaction be if we weren't all hiding our feelings. But, speaking
Not
of...
in this case.
No, I don't know. He just kind of runs out. Speaking of hiding our feelings, shipping alert, Albert and Candace are my favorite couple in the world.
Oh, yeah.
Albert finds his dream woman because Candace, the Buckhorn Police Department cop, baby Scully, they're all Scullys if they're like wearing a lab coat, is just as like sarcastic as him. Like he says, what did he lose his marbles? And she said, when the dog got his cat eyes. And like he like looks at her like, oh, I found my wife. You know, like Cole totally like looks at them too, and it's very cute. Like I'm like, oh, Albert found his woman.
Because basically, what I loved was right before that, like the sheriff is like, this is all the shit that's been happening. Like, we found this guy. He wasn't this guy. So like this guy was having an affair with this lady, and Albert just goes, and then in season 2?
I love that.
Which is a callback to Coop when when he woke up from his like gunshot wounds in
Yes.
the first season.
Good call,
To
baby.
Lucy describing
Tell
the
him,
events
Lucy.
of the
Yeah.
prior night, where everyone like
It's like
the
Leo
mill burned
burned
down.
the mill
yeah.
down, and Shelley was there, and this happened. and
Got
that
smoke ventilation, inhalation, whatever. the
Totally.
word is.
This
Inhalation.
time, Heaven included a double homicide, and
Yeah.
it was definitely a callback to
Leo
Days of
was
Yore Twin Peaks. Yeah, very, very good. good moment there. We get a lot of, I mean, it really is interesting that, and this speaks to Kyle MacLachlan's interview when he says, like, it's about this different timing, that, like, the last episode was all this cerebral, artistic, kind of conceptual stuff. And this episode was like an exposition machine. I mean, it was like, here's what's going on, here's what it means, here's who it
In case
applies
you forgot,
to.
because
Right.
I just spent 2 episodes kind of like lulling about it.
Right. Yeah.
Which is very much a conversation we had when we were doing like first season of Twin
Right.
Peaks, where it was like, oh, and now we have 4 pages of notes on mill plot. where
Right.
It's like, oh, yeah, I guess there's other stuff going on now.
Well, and that's what makes the return more difficult and more interesting, is that you don't know what plot is the mill plot. Like, you have several plots to choose from. You can probably guess that anything involving Kyle MacLachlan is more important than anything not involving him.
Right.
But otherwise, you're sort of just, everything could be
I
equal
feel-
opportunity.
Right. I almost feel like Evil Coop is more A plot.
Yes, Doug is
And then
certainly
like
B-plot.
Twin Peaks.
Dougie is kind of comedy relief, like.
Yeah, remember how
Kyle
I loved
MacLachlan
him?
even says that when he's talking about the show.
Yeah.
Like, he likes the levity of being
The Dougie
Dougie
scenes.
Yeah.
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 Now, I have a question for you guys. Who do we think is JT? So there's Ike the Spike sends a message for JT.
Oh, good question. I don't know.
He says, "This is the message, no cigar, taking medical leave," which means that he didn't make the hit.
Yeah.
And now he's hurt.
Right. So the question is, who then is JT? Is it Evil Coop, like we sort of think? Because
Or
Can't say.
JTT, Jonathan Taylor.
Jonathan Taylor Thomas, could this be a
Home Improvement?
Home Improvement crossover? Possibly. But like,
Fingers fucking crossed.
it is an interesting one because it does seem like the theme of this episode is that, like, oh, everything ties together in that everyone reports to Evil Coop. Like,
Right.
actually, Evil Coop is the millionaire in Vegas, and
He
the
created the box
like,
in New York, probably. That's what I'm
right.
thinking
Like,
right
Evil
now.
Coop is
And
the
then- it's been
Kingpin.
applied about Buenos Aires.
Right.
Yeah, he's definitely related to that. He made the box shrink there or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's all about Evil Coop. So it's somehow JT Evil Coop.
Right.
In the midst of all this madness, we do get one more scene with Beverly and Ben. That
Oh.
I'm just very into this scene because I think it.
No, you really enjoy
I am.
these
I
scenes.
just think
I don't.
because it's so. There's a couple of reasons. Number one, it's a quiet moment in an otherwise very heavy action episode, and it's forced quiet where it's literally like taking the pulse of the audience and saying there's a tone in the walls and do you hear it, and it's 2 characters just being in each other's presence in silence, listening to this sort of buzzing that I think is like a symbol of their chemistry with each other, and like they have this connection.
Then I second guess that by having Jerry being lost in the woods still.
Right?
And not
Jerry is
knowing
lost in the
if
his
his foot
Is his foot. I am not your
or
foot,
just
his foot says.
A random shoe.
Right.
So then he has to attack it. Which
Jerry's
again,
very fucked up right now. Life is hard for Jerry.
there is a Grover episode where he tries to teach children whether his shoe is his shoe or is his shoe his foot, which is very relevant in this scene.
I mean, it's about understanding if you are an extension of what's happening in your world or not. It's really important stuff.
Or that you're so out of it,
So high.
you don't know your foot's your
Right.
foot. Like, there's two extremes here.
I know
like,
what
you like
we've
to go
talked about this
the
before, but like,
oh, he's totally in tune with what
Right.
he's doing. And I go, no, he's just fucking high
Right.
and doesn't know where he is, or that his foot is his foot and not a
Right.
shoe.
why? Yeah, I do think that something has been lost a little bit with like new Jerry and having him be just high all the time. Like, I think there could be more stuff going on.
But what upsets me the most is, so if we were weed dealers in a business where you could sell it legally
Mm-hmm.
in a metropolitan area, wouldn't you be more conscious of where you get high, what you get high on, and like how it affects you? So
Right.
like, you know which strand affects you the most, and then you're like, maybe I'll just stay at home. and
This is
eat.
not pot, Betty.
No, Jerry's like,
This is
yeah,
like LSD, mescaline,
It's gotta
some
be.
mind-altering drugs
yeah,
that
Because
do
it
not
ma-
wear off easily.
right.
Right, because wouldn't
and I
he
think-
just be like, it really bothers me in this aspect where it's like, he's just high and he doesn't know where he is, but it's like, dude, like,
This is like
He's
shrooms.
selling-
This is like
Right,
shrooms.
yeah.
or
he's
LSD,
selling
though.
he's
Yeah.
selling banana bread with pot with a jam on top and taking a nip at it. It's
Yeah,
like,
and it does
oh.
seem like there's a disconnect between him and Ben. And I mean, what I really love about the whole Ben plot line is that he has this moment with Beverly where it seems like they're gonna kiss, and there's a lot of tension
Yeah, he
building
stops
up.
it.
And he says, "I can't do this, Beverly. I don't know why." And she says, "You're a good man, Ben." And if you're a Twin Peaks fan, you know the cost that Ben has had to pay to have someone say you're a good man, Ben. You know, like he had to drastically change himself in his life.
Yeah, he killed people.
I
Well,
know.
through like
I
asking
mean-
Hank Jennings to kill people.
And I think there's insinuation
One is just
here.
a murderer in the
Right.
show that we just kind of now
We
ignore.
all just brush him aside. But I do think there's insinuation here. And I mean, I know we're going to get payoff on Audrey. I believe it. But I think there's insinuation here that
We're
Ben is.
almost on episode 10.
I know, I know.
So it's been like 10 hours
I know,
of
it's
no
weird.
Audrey.
But
Nine
also,
more
like-
hours. 9 more hours.
But wait,
bro.
here's
Right.
the thing.
9 more hours.
We haven't had much more Laura or Shelley or Norma. Like, no one's had much.
Like, we've had a sprinkle. Basically, we've had like
A little
R&R
bit, yeah.
still. We don't know the background of what
Right,
Norma's been doing. We know
right.
I
Shelley's
think we know what she's been doing. She's been managing
Same
the
fucking
double
thing she
R.
was doing before.
That's true. That's true. But we don't know
Yeah.
if it's with Ed or
Where is Ed? Yes, I was
We haven't
wondering
seen
where
Ed.
Ed
When we
is.
know Ed's in the series.
Yes.
I know Ed's in
And
the
like,
series.
I want to know the background of what Nadine's been doing for the
Right.
past. Does
And
she remember
Nadine
when
might be
she
important
was-
because that symbol looked like a winking eye. I'm sorry, and that's Nadine.
Could
maybe
be,
it all
could be.
comes back.
It all
And
comes
that's
back to
why
Nadine.
She was like, "Oh, I'm a teenager now." Season
I don't
2.
know. Yeah, and how did Nadine and Mike end up? Who knows? There's so many questions, but I do feel like something is pointing to Ben has suffered a loss. Whether it's that he divorced his wife, or that he lost Audrey, or that him and Jerry sort of split up. There's something about Ben that tells me that he has had something bad happen to him.
But what
And-
if that was just the experience from?
But that's
the
not the
original
Ben we
series,
saw
though?
in the series. Like
But
the Ben we
it
saw
was-
at the
Yeah,
end of the
but
series.
he was trying to get.
He was
there,
trying to
though.
get there, but he
Right.
still had like
You
a
think you
joie
need
de
another-
vie. He still had. I think that Ben.
I think he just had too much charisma still
I
in
don't
the
know. I think-
end of 2
no.
because
I think
he
that
was
him suffering
chomping
his-
on carrot.
yeah,
And he's like, I'm not
his
gonna-
daughter being in a coma would be traumatizing.
Okay,
Even if
there,
she survived,
there you go. There, yeah,
you know,
sure,
like
sure.
that would be traumatizing.
The traumatization of him
Sick daughter.
almost raping his daughter, and then
Oh yeah,
And then almost
we don't
blowing
talk
her
We don't
up.
talk about that in the
Kat.
Horn family.
No.
Yeah,
we don't talk about
no.
that.
That is just trauma for the.
Trauma for your mama.
or therapist.
Right, that
later
And
no
she
on.
one
almost
talks about.
died. You're right. In the
Yeah, I mean, I
explosion.
think that it is a sadder but wiser Ben that is in these episodes, and
I
I don't
feel
think it's
like-
just age. It's not just age.
No, I feel like, I don't know. Part of me thinks that you're hoping for more than Ben is giving us.
I know, but I also think that like he's a great actor. And I think that they've made a conscious change in the direction of his character and that there's a reason for it. And we're gonna get that reason. And I think we're gonna get it in the next 2 episodes, listeners.
Wow, Bob, wow.
Wow, Bob, wow. I like to make promises like that because, you know, then David Lynch has to listen. We said it on the podcast.
Oh yeah, because he hasn't taped all the episodes for the return yet. So he must be listening to this before.
Right, yeah.
Everyone
he's really
goes on
concerned.
to-
He's really concerned about us.
So the only scene I have left in my notes is the last scene.
Have you seen
Yes.
that penguin?
Right.
Yes.
The zebra
And the
zebra
penguin.
is out again.
I've got two
good-
things before we get to the zebra penguin.
Okay.
I do want to say like William Hastings when he's describing
shit,
to Tammy. So
Matthew Lillard.
yes, and
sobbing.
it is interesting that
Yeah.
this is their first use of Tammy that's practical. Like they're like, we need to get a middle-aged man to spill his guts. Let's pull Tammy in. Let's get her to kind of bat her
She's
eyelashes,
still awful. I
and
hate
we'll
her
get
so much.
we'll get him to speak up. And he says about his experience, like visiting this other plane, and that Ruth was dead, and that Major Briggs like floated up to the sky, which is similar to what we've seen the giant do when he floats up, and
Also,
Carl,
Major Briggs's head
yeah.
floating through space when Cooper was on the on
Right,
top of the
because
box.
his
Right.
head like separated from his body and then
Yeah.
just
So-
floated away.
So
It
I mean,
was.
Bill Hastings is on to like Black Lodge theory,
Yeah.
and I think Cole knows that. I think Tammy doesn't really know that. I think maybe
Right, because she doesn't know what the fuck's going
no,
on.
she's just
because-
kind of like hanging out. But Melissa and I both went to. They created a Search for the Zone website, Showtime
Oh,
or David
Zone,
Lynch or
yes.
someone. And it
Here's
has
a
some
fun
stuff.
fact that I learned from Conan O'Brien that
Ooh.
like once you mention a website on like TV, like you have to have like ownership of it beforehand because
No
like
way.
people will automatically go there, so like you have to have like some kind of homepage or something
No
where
way.
it's like, oh no, this is really my site. It's not like
If you say
Joe
like
Right.
.com after it or something like that.
right
is
where
that-
it's like because like Conan O'Brien did like the masturbating bear or something,
Right,
and
right,
then
right.
like he did something with like a .com attached to it. He's like, yeah, we had to buy that because we can't talk about it without purchasing it because like
That's so great.
people will just go to a random because it's like how all telephone numbers have 555 where it's like that's not a real number.
They probably don't care about buying those domains. Though.
Right, but like,
It's
so
like-
that's funny.
Yeah, that was good. That's good.
But like the search for the
good detail,
zone,
yeah.
they
Yeah,
definitely did
it's
like create
like
a website,
horrible blog website too,
and they
in
make it look
Comic-
so authentic.
Comic Sans all over the place.
And there's links.
where there's Comic Sans the worst font. You know you hate someone when they reply to you in Comic Sans and you're like,
I was like, what
is
do you
this
do? Do you hate me?
1997? Like I
Yeah.
don't understand what's happening right now.
Oh, very, very weird. But the website is. I mean, there's not a lot on there that we haven't covered. Like, I'm
Right.
very proud of us for how close we've been to the theory that seems to be prevalent. But yeah, so that's. And then, okay, so this last scene at the Bang Bang Bar, we have Ella and Chloe, who are both
Ella.
sort of methy type
Meth
characters.
heads. Yes, clearly meth heads,
Ella
yes.
has some rashes on her arm that she's itching.
She is the more methy one.
They both have
And
bad
Pat and I
teeth.
discovered her because she was in a David Lynch concert that was
Yeah.
like David Lynch music, and she actually sang the song Blue Velvet,
Yeah.
which I remember thinking, I don't know if the actors choose their songs or David Lynch does, but if you're thinking of what's the most iconic David Lynch song, it would be Blue Velvet. So like that's a big deal to be the girl who sings that song.
Yeah.
You know, like that's like not a schmucky gig. Like, that was a good one.
And most of her IMDb is performance versus acting.
Right. And she's very into
Yeah,
transcendental
yeah.
meditation.
Yeah. They love TM.
They do
you
love
pretty
it.
much have to be in the TM.
What's interesting is that Chloe says, have you seen that penguin in the beginning of the scene?
Well,
and then
first she says zebra is out.
oh yeah, that's right. The zebra is
The
out.
zebra is
so first
out,
it's
and then-
zebra,
Have you
Zebra
seen
is
that
out
penguin?
again.
and then have you seen that penguin? So both black and white animals, like the black and white lodge.
And they both tried to make jokes or references that each one of them like didn't get or something
Right.
like or like they're like what? What do you mean?
Well, and it made me
And then
think
they
of
laugh.
the penguin joke that Cooper makes to Annie
Yeah.
about gosh, I don't
Tuxedo.
remember the joke,
Tuxedo.
like the tuxedo.
Maybe I am. wearing
Maybe
a
I
tux.
am. Yeah, you look like you're wearing a tuxedo. Maybe I am.
Yeah.
Like it's gotta be a deliberate choice to have them talk about these black and white creatures and to just be there and to have her have the rash. I do think there's kind of this subplot that's percolating under the surface that's going to gain momentum about the drug
drugs,
use.
yeah.
Yeah, and so maybe that's where the rash is coming from, is the drug use
I
here.
feel like the mill plot will be the drugs in Twin Peaks.
Which isn't that funny, because obviously that was the main plot with Laura, you know?
Sure.
Could
I mean,
just
I
be
feel
an
like it was
underlying theme too. I
Yeah.
think too.
that Twin Peaks
But-
is just
yeah.
About drugs.
yeah,
Bringing the sparkle down from Canada.
so many sparkles,
Yeah.
like
So-
a fucking glitter parade.
I mean, I feel like, again, we have more questions than answers, you know?
But
Sure, yeah.
but we
Of
got
course.
a lot more than we did last
Yes.
episode.
Will we
Episode-
get our funeral scene with all of our characters together? I would love that so much. I feel like it's not going to happen, though.
I don't think it. I don't know. I don't know.
Or an atomic bomb episode.
I do love Cooper in the Red Shoes. I mean, he's got Audrey on the Brain Gang. I
Yeah,
feel like David Lynch is
coming.
going to apologize to his fans for this whole, like,
No, he's
sorry
not.
that I didn't get Audrey and Coop together the first time.
No.
Now they're going to be married and have
No.
babies.
No.
We'll see.
I don't know.
He's been stuck in the fucking Black Lodge for 25
You know, but
years.
he's been thinking about
He
those
can't,
gams. He's been thinking about those legs,
Right,
those
but
shoes.
His
He
sperm's
is,
not
he is, yes.
calling
yes,
up her vagina.
Yeah, that's true. He's pretty
He
old
is.
at this point. I keep forgetting that. Love you, Kyle McLaughlin,
Oh.
but you're a little bit on the older side now.
No, and how-
He's a national treasure.
he is. He's like the Maggie Smith.
We
of
love him.
America.
Oh my. We love his
I'm gonna
sweet,
put it
sweet
out
face. Yeah, he's lovely. Meanwhile,